I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name is Jake, and I always considered myself a pretty average guy. I had a decent job in marketing, a cozy little house in the suburbs, and a wife, Lisa, who I thought was my partner for life. We were married for 5 years, and while we had our ups and downs like any couple, I believed we were solid. We had a dog, Max, who was the embodiment of loyalty and love, everything I thought my marriage was. But lately, things had felt different. I noticed Lisa was more distant. She would come home late, always with some excuse about work or a girls' night she just couldn't miss. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just busy with her job at the marketing firm. But there were little signs. I found her phone buzzing at odd hours, and when I would reach for it, she'd snap at me. "What do you think you're doing?" The trust that had once been our foundation was starting to feel shaky. Then came the day everything unraveled. It started like any other Saturday. I decided to surprise Lisa by getting a late breakfast from our favorite cafe. I was excited to see her smile when I walked through the door with her favorite avocado toast. But as I entered the house, I heard laughter coming from the backyard. It was a sound I had heard many times, but that day it felt different, almost too light-hearted. Curiosity took over and I peeked through the window. What I saw made my heart drop. Lisa was out there with Brian, our dog Walker, and they were far too cozy for my comfort. They were laughing and he had his arm around her shoulders. My stomach churned as I took a step back, trying to process what I was seeing. The worst part, I felt like an idiot for not seeing it sooner. I had been oblivious to the signs, the little changes in her behavior that now seemed glaringly obvious. I watched for what felt like hours, but in reality, it was just minutes. It was enough to see the intimate way she looked at him and the way they were touching, something that should have been reserved for me. I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. I walked back inside, my mind racing. Should I confront her right then, or wait until things calmed down? I decided I couldn't let this go unaddressed, so I waited for them to come inside, my heart pounding in my chest, feeling like a volcano ready to erupt. When Lisa walked in, she was glowing. The way she smiled at me felt foreign. I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand answers, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Morning, honey, everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yeah, just had some fun with Brian. You know how it is," she said, tossing her hair over her shoulder, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I couldn't take it anymore. "You know, I saw you two outside," I said, my voice barely above a whisper but dripping with anger. Her face morphed from joy to panic in an instant. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. I confronted her with the evidence I had witnessed, the laughter, the arm around her. She tried to brush it off, claiming it was just harmless fun, that I was overreacting, but deep down I knew it was much more than that. The excuses came pouring out like a dam bursting. "You're just being jealous. You're too sensitive," and the classic, "You're imagining things." Each lie felt like a stab to my heart. As I stood there watching the woman I thought I knew unravel before me, I felt my world shift. Anger morphed into a sadness I couldn't quite articulate. This wasn't just about betrayal, it was about the trust that had been shattered. I realized that my emotions were a mixture of disbelief, sorrow, and a simmering rage I didn't know how to handle. With every excuse she threw at me, I felt like I was losing myself. I didn't recognize the person who had once loved this woman so deeply. I decided then and there that I couldn't stay in this relationship any longer, but how to confront this betrayal? I had to think this through carefully. So sitting there, I made a silent promise to myself. I would take back my power. I would not let her lies define me. I had Max, my loyal dog, who loved me unconditionally. I would focus on that love, the only thing that felt real in this moment. As I sat there, I could feel the anger brewing, but I also felt the weight of the sadness pressing down on me. I needed a plan, something that would help me heal and regain my strength in this tumultuous time. Should I proceed with my plan for revenge? Or should I try to salvage what was left of my marriage? The questions raced through my mind, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let this betrayal go unanswered. The confrontation with Lisa left me feeling hollow. I spent the rest of the day replaying our argument over and over in my mind, the sting of her words cutting deeper each time. I had never seen someone so effortlessly switch between innocence and guilt. I felt betrayed not just by her actions, but by the very person I had committed my life to. That evening, I decided to take Max for a long walk. The air was cool, and the sun had started to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow on the neighborhood. Walking him was therapeutic, a way to clear my mind. As I strolled past the houses, I noticed the families outside, laughing and playing together. I felt like an outsider looking in on a world that seemed so normal and happy. Max, oblivious to the turmoil in my mind, bounded ahead, tail wagging with joy. His enthusiasm reminded me of the simple things in life, the things that really mattered. I tried to focus on him, on the way he loved me unconditionally. It hit me that he was my one true companion in this mess, the only one who had always been there for me. But the thoughts of Lisa crept back in, and I began to wonder how I could get back at her. She had betrayed my trust, and I was not going to let her walk away unscathed. I needed a plan, an intricate scheme that would make her understand the pain she had caused. The more I thought about it, the more resolved I became. That night, I came home, feeling more determined than ever. Max was snuggled up on the couch, and as I sat next to him, I realized I wasn't just plotting revenge. I was reclaiming my life. I didn't want to be a victim. I wanted to take control of this situation. I began to formulate a plan. I wanted to expose her betrayal not just to myself but to the people around us. I imagined the look on her face when she realized her little secret was out in the open. I considered reaching out to Brian, our dog walker. I had his number saved, and I thought about sending him a message. "Hey, how's it going? Are you still enjoying your time with Lisa?" I could picture his reaction. Maybe he thought I was clueless, that I wouldn't find out. But I was done being the oblivious husband. I was going to let him know that I was fully aware of what was happening. But before I acted, I needed more evidence, something concrete that would drive the point home. So, I decided to do some snooping. Lisa had a habit of leaving her phone unattended, and while I felt like a total creep for considering it, I knew it was the only way to get what I needed. The next day, I waited until she left for her yoga class. I told myself it was just a routine check, but deep down I knew this was crossing a line. I couldn't help it. I needed to know how deep her betrayal ran. I went into our bedroom, and there it was, the phone, innocently lying on her nightstand. I picked it up and felt a rush of guilt wash over me, but I pushed it down. I unlocked it with her birthday date. I'd always been the one to suggest simple passwords, and immediately went into her messages. As I scrolled through, my heart raced. There were texts from Brian, flirty messages, photos, and plans they had made to meet up. I felt sick. But then I found something even worse, a message that suggested they had been intimate. My breath caught in my throat. I had to brace myself against the dresser to keep from collapsing. I couldn't believe what I was reading. She had betrayed not only my trust but our vows. I felt anger bubbling up inside me again, the kind that made my hands tremble. I took screenshots, feeling a sense of vindication with each one I saved. This was evidence, proof of her infidelity, something I could use against her when the time was right. I knew I could no longer allow her to manipulate me with her lies. When Lisa came home, I acted completely normal. I had this calm exterior while a storm raged inside me. She walked in, blissfully unaware of the ticking time bomb she had created. I made her dinner, casual conversation flowing as if nothing was wrong, but I could feel the tension building beneath the surface. As she sat down to eat, I couldn't help but watch her. I wondered how long it would take for her to realize that I was onto her. It was almost entertaining, watching her sip her wine and laugh, completely oblivious to the fact that I had evidence of her betrayal right at my fingertips. I decided I would wait a few days before I executed my plan. I wanted her to feel comfortable, to let her guard down. Then, when she least expected it, I would drop the bombshell. I felt a strange satisfaction knowing that I was the one holding the power now. In those days leading up to the confrontation, I couldn't stop thinking about how this would end. Would I confront her directly? Would I tell our friends about her affair? The more I pondered, the more the anger morphed into resolve. I had been wronged, and I was going to make sure she understood the consequences of her actions. As I lay in bed each night, I kept Max close. He was my confidant, my loyal companion who would never betray me. I felt a sense of solace in his presence. Whatever happened next, I knew I had to remain strong for both of us, so the stage was set. I was ready for my revenge. The days dragged on, each one feeling longer than the last. I was consumed by thoughts of revenge and how to confront Lisa with the truth. I had the evidence, the screenshots that would shatter her facade. I watched her go about her life, completely unaware of the impending storm. I decided I needed to wait until the weekend for my big reveal. I wanted to ensure that I had her full attention, and a Saturday evening seemed like the perfect time. On Friday night, I kept things casual again. We had dinner, and I was almost impressed with how well I could hide my feelings. Lisa talked about work, her friends, and how excited she was to go out with a few of them on Saturday night. I nodded along, my insides twisting. She had no idea that her night out would soon turn into a reckoning. Saturday arrived, and I could feel the tension in the air. I had spent the morning pacing and thinking about our upcoming confrontation. I needed to make sure I was calm, collected, and ready to expose her for what she was. Max seemed to sense my agitation, following me around as I moved from room to room. I took him for a long walk, hoping that the fresh air would clear my mind. As evening approached, I planned everything meticulously. I prepared a simple dinner, more of a distraction than a feast. I wanted her to feel comfortable, so I avoided any discussion about her plans for the night. Instead, I focused on casual topics like how Max had rolled in the mud earlier that day. After dinner, I felt the moment had arrived. Lisa went to the bathroom, and I quickly grabbed my phone and pulled up the incriminating screenshots. I could feel my heart racing as I waited for her to back. The anticipation was both exhilarating and terrifying. When she returned, I gestured toward the couch. "Hey, do you want to sit down for a second? I have something I want to talk to you about." My voice was steady, but the tremor in my hands betrayed my nerves. "Sure, what's up?" she asked, tilting her head slightly, a hint of concern flashing across her face. I took a deep breath, swallowing hard as I steadied myself. "I know about you and Brian," I said, keeping my gaze steady on her. The look of confusion on her face was priceless, but I pushed forward. "I have proof, Lisa, texts, photos, everything." Her expression shifted instantly from confusion to anger. "What are you talking about?" she shouted, her voice rising. "You're being ridiculous. How dare you accuse me of something like that?" I didn't flinch. I pulled my phone out and handed it to her. "Read them, all of it." She hesitated, glaring at me, her expression a mix of disbelief and defiance. But as she started scrolling through the messages, her face paled, and I watched the color drain from her cheeks. I saw the realization wash over her. She had been caught, and there was no way to spin her way out of this one. "Jake, please let me explain," she stammered, her voice trembling slightly, but I wasn't interested in her explanations anymore. I had heard enough lies over the past few weeks. "Explain what? How you've been flirting with him? How you've been lying to me? You think I'm just going to sit here and listen to you make excuses?" I could feel my anger boiling over, and I wanted to yell, to let it all out, but I restrained myself. I wanted to stand firm, to show her that I wouldn't be her emotional punching bag any longer. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was a mistake," she cried, her voice breaking as she tried to reach for my hand. "Don't touch me," I said coldly, pulling away. "You don't get to play the victim here. You made your choices, and now you have to face the consequences." Tears streamed down her face as she continued to plead. "I love you. I didn't want it to go this far," but her words fell on deaf ears. I had spent too long loving someone who was willing to throw it all away for a thrill. I looked at her, my heart heavy yet resolute. "You don't get to say that. Love doesn't work this way. You don't love me if you're sleeping with someone else." The silence that followed was deafening. I could see her mind racing as she tried to come up with a new excuse, a way to worm her way back into my good graces. But the jig was up, and I wouldn't allow her to twist the narrative anymore. "I'm done with this, Lisa. I can't be with someone who doesn't value me or our marriage. You've shown me who you really are, and I refuse to ignore it any longer." Her sobs filled the room, but I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. This confrontation was necessary. It was freeing. I had taken control, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I calmly stood up, leaving her to process the weight of her actions. I walked into the other room and picked up Max's leash. He looked up at me, sensing my distress. I crouched down next to him and wrapped my arms around his neck, inhaling his familiar scent. "We're going to be okay, buddy. We're going to get through this together." As I walked out the door with Max by my side, I felt an unexpected sense of liberation. I knew I had a long road ahead, but I was ready to take it. I wouldn't be defined by her betrayal. I would rise from this stronger than ever. As I headed out into the cool night air, I couldn't help but feel a mix of sadness and relief. I had taken the first step toward reclaiming my life, and I was ready for whatever came next. Leaving Lisa that night felt surreal. I was walking away from the life I had built, but it was a life that had been built on lies and betrayal. Max trotted happily beside me, blissfully unaware of the chaos that had just erupted in our home. I felt a strange combination of grief and relief as we made our way to the nearby park. The moon hung high in the sky, casting silver light over the pathways and playing with the shadows of the trees. I found a bench and sat down, letting Max roam freely in the grass. The familiar sounds of the night, the rustling leaves, the distant laughter of other dog owners, and the soft thud of Max's paws on the ground were comforting. But beneath it all, I felt numb. I thought about the past few months, how I had ignored the signs, telling myself that everything was fine. It was as if a switch had flipped. I had been the trusting husband, the one who believed in love and loyalty. Now here I was, grappling with the reality that those concepts were meaningless to Lisa. I took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill my lungs, and tried to ground myself. What came next? I couldn't go back home. That was no longer a safe space for me. I thought about calling a friend, but I didn't want to burden anyone with my heartbreak. Instead, I reached for my phone and texted my brother, Mike. I hadn't told him much about what was going on, but he'd always had my back. "Hey, can we talk? I'm going through some stuff," I sent, my thumb hovering over the send button for a moment. I needed to reach out to connect with someone who cared. I hit send and waited, feeling a small weight lift off my shoulders. While I waited for his reply, I watched Max chase after a squirrel, the embodiment of joy and innocence. It struck me how he had been the one consistent source of love in my life. No matter what had happened at home, he was always there, wagging his tail, ready for an adventure. After a few minutes, my phone buzzed. "Of course, want to meet up. I'm free tonight." "Yeah, I'd love that. I'll head over," I replied. I gathered Max and headed to my car, feeling a flicker of hope surge within me. Connecting with my brother might just be the distraction I needed. When I arrived at Mike's place, he opened the door with a concerned expression. "Jake, man, what's going on?" He ushered me inside, and I could feel the warmth of his genuine concern enveloping me. I sat down on the couch, trying to find the words. It felt monumental to share my pain, but I knew I couldn't keep it bottled up. "It's Lisa," I finally said, my voice cracking slightly. "She's been cheating on me with our dog Walker." Mike's eyes widened in shock. "What, are you serious?" I nodded, feeling the lump in my throat grow. "I caught them. I saw them together, and then I found texts on her phone. It's all true." "I can't believe that," he said, shaking his head. "I'm so sorry, man. You deserve so much better than that." The acknowledgement of my pain felt cathartic. I shared everything: the confrontations, the lies, the anger, and the moments of doubt I had experienced. With each word, I felt like I was peeling back layers of hurt, exposing the raw emotions that had been lurking beneath the surface. Mike listened intently, offering words of comfort and understanding. "You're not alone in this, Jake. You've got people who care about you. Don't forget that." As we talked, I began to process my emotions more fully. I was angry, but I was also heartbroken. I felt lost, but I was starting to see a way forward. "I just don't know what to do next," I admitted. Feeling vulnerable. "What do you want to do?" Mike asked, a thoughtful look on his face. I paused, considering his question. "I want to move on. I want to be happy again, but I feel like I'm stuck in this limbo right now." "Have you thought about separating for a while?" he suggested. "Take some time to figure out what you want. You don't have to make any decisions immediately." The idea resonated with me. I had been so focused on revenge and anger that I hadn't considered what would truly bring me peace. Yeah, I think that might be a good idea," I replied slowly. Maybe I just need some distance to clear my head. We spent the rest of the night talking and venting, and for the first time in days, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I realized that while the betrayal hurt deeply, I had the power to take control of my life again. I could rebuild, but it would take time. By the time I left Mike's place, I felt lighter. Max jumped up into the car, nuzzling against my leg as if sensing my relief. No, buddy, I said softly, running my fingers through his fur. We're going to be okay. We'll figure this out together. Over the next few days, I took some time to reflect. I started making plans to find a new place to live, somewhere that felt like a fresh start. I didn't want to be reminded of all the pain I had endured in our home. I began researching dog-friendly apartments, envisioning a space where Max could roam freely and where I could finally breathe without the weight of betrayal hovering over me. I also started to think about my own healing. I reached out to a therapist, looking for a professional who could help me process everything I had been through. I wanted to work on myself, both for my own sake and for Max. I needed to be the best version of myself, free from the chains of a broken marriage. As the days turned into weeks, I slowly began to reclaim my life. Each small step I took toward healing felt like a victory. I learned to appreciate the quiet moments, the simplicity of life without the chaos of lies. The journey was far from over, but I was finally moving forward. I had learned that my worth wasn't tied to someone else's actions. I was capable of love, resilience, and rebuilding. And for the first time in a long while, I felt hope flickering in my heart. As the weeks passed, I found myself in a rhythm I hadn't anticipated. Each day presented new challenges, but they were challenges I was ready to face head-on. I had made significant progress, both emotionally and logistically. I spent time with friends, reconnected with family, and took long walks with Max, who was my steadfast companion through it all. The decision to separate from Lisa felt right. I had found a small apartment not too far from my old place, one that was both affordable and dog-friendly. It had a little yard where Max could chase squirrels and a cozy living room that I could finally fill with things that made me happy. I took my time moving in, making sure it felt like home rather than just a transition space. One evening, as I was unpacking boxes, my phone buzzed with a text from Mike. "Hey man, you want to hang out? I found this new bar. That's dog-friendly. Thought it'd be a good way to unwind." I smiled at the thought. "Sure, sounds good. Just let me grab Max and I'll meet you there." I drove to the bar, excited for a night out. It felt liberating to socialize without the weight of my previous life pressing down on me. When I arrived, Mike was already there, and I could see he had saved a spot for us on the patio. Max bounded out of the car, eager to explore his surroundings. The atmosphere was lively, with laughter and music filling the air. As we sat down with drinks, I felt a sense of normalcy returning. We talked about everything: sports, work, and what we wanted out of life. It felt refreshing to have conversations that didn't revolve around heartbreak and betrayal. Halfway through the night, I spotted Lisa entering the bar. My heart sank for a moment, memories of our life together flooding back. She looked radiant, dressed up in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. She was laughing and talking animatedly with friends, seemingly unfazed by the life I was trying to rebuild. "Jake, you okay?" Mike asked, noticing the shift in my demeanor. "Yeah, just saw Lisa," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's weird seeing her like this, like she's moved on without me." "Does it hurt?" he asked gently. I took a deep breath, collecting my thoughts. "It does, but I'm also realizing how much better I'm doing. I'm building a life for myself again. I can't let her actions define my happiness." "Good. You deserve to be happy," Mike said, clapping me on the shoulder. "You've already taken the hardest step by getting out of that situation." As the night continued, I found myself laughing and enjoying the company of friends. Max curled up at my feet, and I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. I had survived the storm, and I was starting to see the light breaking through. Just as things seemed to be settling, I glanced over at Lisa again. She was standing at the bar, chatting with Brian. The sight made my stomach churn. It felt like a punch to the gut, seeing them together in a place that was supposed to be enjoyable. I turned back to Mike, forcing myself to focus on the present. Let's get out of here, I suggested, needing to get away from the reminder of my past. Mike nodded in agreement and we made our way to the door. As we stepped outside, fresh air filled my lungs and I felt a sense of relief wash over me. But I couldn't shake the feeling of anger that bubbled beneath the surface. I had done the right thing by leaving her, but seeing her with Brian reignited something inside me. I knew I had to confront this once and for all. Over the next few days, I mulled over my feelings. I realized I needed closure, not just for my sake, but for Lisa's too. It wouldn't be about reconciliation. It would be about expressing how her actions had hurt me deeply. If I was going to fully heal, I needed to confront her again. I planned a meeting with her. It felt necessary to have this conversation face to face, to express my feelings and get some closure. I reached out to her via text, and to my surprise, she agreed to meet up. We decided to meet at a coffee shop close to my new apartment. As the day approached, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. I wanted to be strong, to stand firm in what I believed, but I also feared falling back into old patterns. However, I reminded myself of all the growth I had experienced over the past few weeks. I could do this. When I arrived at the cafe, my heart raced with anticipation. I could see Lisa sitting at a table by the window, looking nervous. I approached her, and our eyes locked for a moment. There was a familiarity that lingered, but it was overshadowed by the hurt between us. "Thanks for agreeing to meet," I said, trying to maintain my composure. "Of course," she replied, her voice wavering slightly. "I wanted to talk too." We sat in silence for a moment, the tension palpable. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "I wanted to talk about what happened between us. I need you to understand how your actions affected me." She nodded, her eyes welling with tears. "I know I messed up, Jake. I never wanted to hurt you. It was just one mistake that spiraled out of control." I clenched, my fists trying to remain calm. "It wasn't just a mistake, Lisa. You broke my trust. You threw away everything we built together for something superficial. I deserve better than that." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't change the past, and I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't realize how much I would lose." I felt a flicker of pity for her, but it quickly faded. "I'm not here to discuss us or what could have been. I'm here to let you know that I'm moving on. I can't keep holding on to the anger or the pain. I need to focus on my own happiness now." She looked down at her hands, and I could see the regret etched across her face. "I understand, and I'm truly sorry for what I did. I hope you find happiness, Jake." Her words felt hollow, but I appreciated the sentiment. "I appreciate that. I hope you take this time to reflect on your actions and what led you here." With that, I stood up, feeling a mix of closure and sadness. The conversation had been necessary, but it was time to leave the past behind. I walked out of the cafe with a newfound sense of clarity. As I stepped outside, I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I had faced my past and emerged stronger. Max greeted me with a wagging tail, and for the first time in a long while, I could see the bright future ahead. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, and I knew it would be filled with new adventures, both for me and Max. Leaving the cafe felt like a true turning point. I had finally confronted Lisa, unburdened my heart, and made it clear that I was moving on. I walked to my car, Max eagerly hopping beside me, and I couldn't help but smile. The weight of betrayal was still there, but it was lighter now, almost manageable. I had faced the storm and had emerged stronger, ready to reclaim my life. In the weeks that followed, I began to truly embrace my new beginning. I moved into my apartment and decorated it with things that reflected who I was. I painted the walls a warm blue, hung up photos of my adventures with Max, and even got a few plants to add some life to the space. Each little change felt like a step toward redefining my life without Lisa. I made new friends and reconnected with old ones. I joined a local dog park group where Max could run free while I engaged with fellow dog owners. I found comfort in their stories. Many of them had faced their own struggles, and it felt good to be a part of a community. They offered support and camaraderie that I had missed. One Saturday, after a particularly invigorating walk with Max, I decided to take him to a new coffee shop that had recently opened nearby. As I sat outside on the patio, sipping my drink while Max rested his head on my lap, I felt a wave of contentment wash over me. I was starting to find joy in the little moments again. That afternoon, a woman named Sarah approached me, a golden retriever wagging its tail by her side. "Your dog is adorable," she said, smiling brightly. "What's his name?" "Thanks, this is Max," I replied, returning her smile. "He's my best buddy. I can see that. I'm Emma by the way," she said, extending her hand. We chatted about our dogs, and it felt refreshing to connect with someone new. The conversation flowed easily, and before I knew it, we were exchanging numbers and making plans to meet up again. It was moments like this that reminded me that life moves on, even when it feels like the ground has been shaken beneath you. I had learned that I was capable of resilience, of rebuilding after betrayal, and of finding joy again. About a month later, I received a text from Mike. "Hey, you free for a catch-up this weekend? I have something I want to share." Curious, I agreed to meet up at our usual spot. When we sat down, he looked both excited and nervous. "So, you know that bar we went to? I've been seeing someone. Her name is Jenna and she's incredible." I couldn't help but beam back at him. "That's amazing. I'm so happy for you, man." "Thanks. I wanted to share it with you because I know how hard things have been for you." "You've really come a long way, Jake," he said, his eyes filled with pride. "It hasn't been easy, but I feel like I'm finally back on my feet. I'm starting to understand what I want in life, and it's a lot clearer now," I admitted. We spent the rest of the afternoon laughing and sharing stories, and I felt a surge of gratitude for the people in my life who had supported me through the rough times. As the weeks turned into months, I cultivated a new routine. My focus shifted away from the past and toward my future. I signed up for a cooking class, rediscovering the joy of creating meals. I even took a solo trip to the mountains where I hiked, reflected, and reconnected with nature. Max was always by my side, a reminder of loyalty and unconditional love. He had been my rock throughout this journey, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. Then one evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I received an unexpected message from Lisa. "Hey, Jake. I just wanted to check in. I hope you're doing well." I felt a mix of emotions, surprise, curiosity, and a hint of resentment. I took my time responding, reflecting on how far I had come. "I'm doing well, thanks. I've been focusing on myself. I hope you're finding your way too." I hit send, and as I did, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. It didn't matter what Lisa was doing anymore. I had moved forward, and I was no longer tied to her actions or decisions. A few days later, I met up with Sarah again, and our connection deepened. She was kind, funny, and shared my love for adventure. We began exploring new places together, and I found myself smiling more than I had in years. It felt like a new chapter was opening, one that was filled with promise and optimism. As I looked back on the journey I had taken, I realized that while betrayal had torn my world apart, it had also given me an opportunity to rebuild it on my own terms. I learned that love can sometimes blind you, but it's essential to stay true to yourself and your worth. I had emerged from the darkness with a stronger sense of self, a clearer vision of what I wanted, and a loyal companion who would always be by my side. Moving forward, I promised myself I would embrace the uncertainty of life, taking each day as it came. I was ready to face whatever the future had in store, knowing that I had the strength to overcome any obstacle. Life was good, and I was ready to live it fully. In the end, I realized that betrayal doesn't have to define you. It can be the catalyst for your greatest transformation. And as I sat there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I knew my journey was just beginning. Max nudged my hand, and I smiled, grateful for the unwavering loyalty that had seen me through the darkest of times. Together, we were ready to embrace the bright future ahead.